Just started recording. This is Myriacast episode 2, specifically talking about RPGs today. JRPGs, Western RPGs, some of the things we're playing now and what we look forward to, and for some of those, it may not necessarily be RPGs. And good mechanics and bad mechanics involved in those types of RPGs, our top RPGs that we've enjoyed over the time we've been playing, and we'll talk a little bit about the underrated games we've been playing over the course of our gameplay. So I am Otto, and this is my co-host.
Spoon, SPT Spoon, I guess.
And today we are broadcasting on the Myriathon Twitch channel, which is twitch.tv/the Myriathon. So if you're interested in watching more of these will be every Monday, 5 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. Eastern. Please give us a follow if you're interested, or just tell your friends about us. And we also have a Twitter. We can use my Twitter, but my own personal Twitter, which I'll highlight near the end, but also the Myriathon Twitter if you want updates to the Myriacast. Sometimes we post polls. We've been doing that recently regarding some of our topics. Please give that a follow. And all the VODs and audio for these episodes will be posted onto YouTube and SoundCloud. So if you're interested in following that, please subscribe to our YouTube channel as we are posting videos there after the episodes. And the SoundCloud audio will be posted. That is my own personal SoundCloud. So if you're interested in just getting some audio, or maybe you're at work or something, it'll be posted there. So additionally, to round out this introduction, the Myriathon is a biannual charity event. We marathon, I should say, games over the course of 48 to 20 or 72 hours. This year, we will be hosting June 11th to 14th, and the charity we're supporting is Exodus Road. So if you're interested in following that, mark your calendars for that one, and we hope to see you there. And now let's get to talking about these RPGs I've heard so much about. Now, my co-host Spoon here is more of a JRPG type person.
Indeed.
And I personally lean more towards the Western RPG side. As much of a blasphemer I am, we are going to discuss the good and bad with that and just games we like in those genres. So, Spoon, why don't you start us off? I know you've been traveling recently, but what are the games that you've been playing, whether it's at school or maybe right before you've been at school? It doesn't necessarily even have to be our.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a whirlwind of the last 5 days or so since school told us to go home, basically. But yeah, I was traveling yesterday, which is why we're broadcasting this week on Tuesday as opposed to Monday. But we'll be back to our normal schedule next week. But um, that
Okay.
that aside, we I am currently playing a game that has been pretty popular and like highly recommended overall, but I just kind of am getting to it, and that is Near Automata. It came out in, I want to say, 2017. I think that's right,
Sounds
but
about right. Maybe
um,
2018. We can check that.
yeah, I think it was 2017.
We have the
But
internet. Let me check.
but
2017.
yeah, this game is was very popular in the Kingdom Hearts speedrunning community, which for those of you who know me, I'm a part of. Um, and yeah, I mean it's a really fun game. I'm still like in the sort of, it's kinda divided strangely from what I've heard. Like, you have to play through the game kinda, like, 3 different times, so there's, like, A route, B route, C route, or
Okay.
something like that. So I'm still in A route right now, so which is kind of the early part. I'm, like, 10, 11 hours in or so, not too far. The game, it's an action RPG, a lot of hack and slash. It's developed by Platinum, so Platinum Games always does good action style combat systems. Yeah, the game's really fun. The story is like, it's a post-apocalyptic world where the Earth has been taken over by aliens and these like machine life forms, and you play as an android who is developed by the remnants of human society trying to basically retake Earth. Um, and there's definitely some interesting story beats going on where like I think not all is what it seems. I don't really have any projections or guesses as to what is going to happen, but I've heard that the story gets pretty good and pretty crazy in the B and C routes. So I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, again, just a really fun hack and slash action RPG. So far, again, the story's not much to write home about, but as
Mm,
I've said, I've heard it gets much better later. Um, yeah, so that's mostly what I've been playing over the
sure.
past couple of weeks. Um, and yeah,
Yeah, and you've had school, so completely understandable. You can only play so many things at once, and it's hard to like, especially for me as well, diving into like one game in particular. You can sort of like put all your time into, but sometimes I'm like playing 5 different games. Possible to get so far in certain ones. So um, you're doing the right thing. I am the complete opposite. So he's got one game or maybe two if you've got more.
I mean it's gonna change now that I'm home. I'm gonna
Right.
like go play the Cage 3 DLC and
So
like
there you
all that
go.
now that I'm home. So it's gonna change,
It's gonna
but
grow.
yeah,
So for
yeah.
me, I'm not joking. For we'll just take out some of the other games that I play, like like Heroes of the Storm and stuff. But I've been playing Division 2 off and on, but I have been playing that one, and that one I haven't played in a couple days. But I won't say that I grind out the game to be to the point where I'm like trying to get raids going right now and trying to get optimal gear. But I play that quite a bit. I would say over the course of the last couple weeks, I've been playing at least an hour or two. And I've also been um, playing Mega Man X Command Mission just because of Myriathon that we're going to be doing upcoming, but also I do enjoy that game, and I'll talk about that game later. And that's a JRPG styled game. And additionally, I started playing Octopath Traveler again. I restarted
Oh.
the game, and I want to go through it again. That one I know is going to be a grind for hours. So those are like three of the ones outside of like, you know, like I said, like MOBAs or whatever else.
And you played Cage 3 once and
And I
then
play KH3
stopped.
one day, and like I said, I got like 5 different games I go to, and sometimes I like stop one for a few weeks and then go back to it. Um, yeah, KH3, it wasn't just a bad, it wasn't a bad game or anything. Like one day of that, and then I'm like, oh well, I've got other stuff I want to go back into Division 2. So much, so eventually these games get completed, but
I try to not spread myself too thin. I like to play like
you're
one or two at a time maximum usually, and like
mhm.
and then move on. Because if I spread myself too thin, I know that I'm like never gonna finish anything.
You're making the
Just
right
no.
choice. I've made the wrong choice in this life of like playing 5 different games, um, and just like trying to divide my time out while also doing other things involving like coding and stuff. But now that we're all, staying at home, at least here and where I am, it's like things are a little bit different.
Oh
Not
yeah,
just from a productivity perspective, but like everybody's in the house. Stella's barking all the time because we're all here, and it's weird for her. So
yeah, we're on lockdown. We're
yeah,
on
we're
lockdown
all
here
locked
too.
down. So anyway, so let's talk about some of the games that we're looking forward to over the course of the next, we'll say, couple months, maybe year. Things that we've probably heard about, obviously, but we're just really either interested or we've seen it and we're thinking, oh, maybe this is something I'm not looking forward to. Um, and for me, I'll just start for my first one. I'm looking forward to. This is not an RPG, I would say, strictly speaking. It's got some elements of it. I'm looking forward to Doom Eternal, and that's a couple days. And
Yep.
I I really loved Doom, the most recent one. That was just like a really fun. You can just like turn your brain off game, just
Yeah.
slay. And Doom Eternal, I'm hopeful is the exact same way, with maybe obviously some minor updates, changes. Um, but that's what I really really want to play, and that's
Yeah,
coming out I think in a couple days.
I'm gonna hope that again Bethesda kind of keeps their hand off the scale. Like, just let the developer do what they do, and just it's
They
fine.
they've
Like,
done a good job working with id.
mhm.
Um,
Is that the developer?
I think it's id. Yeah, it's id like software or something like that. So Doom Eternal. I think the developer is just. So we have computers here. It's id. Okay, so it's well the so we know it's id software. That's it. Id software, and it says like Panic Button Games, but it's mostly id software. Um, and it just seems like the first one. Thank goodness Bethesda didn't seem like they were as involved as they have been with some of their other mainline titles. But yeah, my hope is just stay out of it, Bethesda. Please stay out of it.
Yeah,
Let this game be what it's supposed to be.
yeah, like what EA did with Fallen Order. They just let Respawn make the game,
Yeah,
and it's fine.
that's the
Like,
right choice. Just stay out of it. So anyway, that's like the main one I'm looking forward to. There's like a couple others, but that's the main one.
I've got too many to
Okay, you've got
list.
too many. You got like 3 or 4.
I mean, if we're talking like within the next year, then it's
Yeah.
it's a lot. But within the next month or so,
Okay.
um, let's say, I mean, I'm gonna obviously this came out a couple of months ago, but the KH3 DLC I haven't been able to play yet because I
Hmm.
don't have my PS4 with me at school. So I'm gonna be playing that coming up. I've heard and seen good things about it, so I'm looking forward to that. Um, Persona 5 Royal, which is the final mix, if you will, of
Okay.
Persona 5, is coming out of at the end of this month.
Okay.
I probably will not play that as soon as it comes out, just because there's more stuff coming out, and that game is obscenely long.
I
Um,
You've told me it's like 90 hours.
yeah, it took me about 90 hours to beat
Yeah,
the first one. I mean, I've played longer games, but yeah, it's up there.
mhm.
Um, and then next month, Final Fantasy VII Remake. That game looks so good. Like, I've not played the original Final Fantasy VII. I'm
Mhm.
not a big like fanboy for the original FF7 or anything like that, but
Mhm.
graphically the game looks incredible. I like what I've seen from the updates to the combat system. It just looks really good. That game looks amazing.
I've seen videos of it and just visually looks appealing. Really
Yeah.
looks appealing. But I've never been into the Final Fantasy series. I've never played a single. Um,
Yeah.
but like I know the games are there's definitely a strong quality behind. When I was watching you guys play Final Fantasy 13, the games look really good and they have some interesting. There are just like certain things that were some of the enemy design I always laughed at, but like the dice, like come on.
Yeah.
Dodecahedron is not really an
Yeah.
enemy dice, but anyway. So besides those two, are there any others? We'll extend out maybe a couple more months.
Okay. Well, there's two games that are that do not have release dates
Okay.
currently, but one of which I believe was announced for this year for certain, and
Mm-hmm.
that's Tales of Arise, which will be the next mainline entry in the long-running Tales of
Yep.
JRPG series. It was announced at E3 last year,
Okay.
and they really haven't said much about it since. I think there was like one more slightly longer trailer at TGS or something like that, but
Okay.
that's about it. I mean, it's the gonna be the first like real like next gen Tales game because like Berseria came out like in 2017 and it was on PS4, but the game was developed for PS3
Okay.
like
So it
as
was like
well. So
optimized.
it still looked a little dated and like it's a great game no doubt, but it wasn't really a next gen Tales game.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so Arise is going to be the first next gen, the real first real next gen Tales game, and that game looks great. And then the other one, which has not yet been confirmed for this year yet, but I'm kind of expecting it to come out this year, would be the fourth and final game in the Cold Steel series,
Okay.
Legend of Heroes: Trails of Cold Steel 4, um, which is which I'll talk about that series
Sure.
a little more later.
And
But
you'll have to
it's
elaborate on why it's the final one.
I mean, it's not the final game in the series, but
Okay.
it's the final game in the Cold Steel
Okay.
arc.
So in the okay.
The series is split into like a couple different arcs, and this is the
Okay.
Cold Steel arc, and that is the fourth and final game
Got it. Got it. Got it. Got it.
in the Cold Steel arc. So
Yeah, I just was like, and really, it's weird that the game just like says like, oh no, after this we're done. We're done. We're
yeah,
done.
y'all done.
You're done. Uh,
How
because
about you? Anything else you're looking forward to
I
past
think
Doom?
Cyberpunk is another
Oh,
one
of
that I've heard
course,
about
yeah,
that I am
Cyberpunk.
genuinely curious about. Like I said, I've never played a Final Fantasy game. Maybe that's one I dabble into. Who knows? I've got, like I said, I've probably got 6 other games I'll be playing at that time. And I think like for me in particular, um, from beyond just Doom Eternal, I haven't really seen much else that I've just like seen and said, oh yeah, definitely that one. Mark it on the calendar. Um, just because I haven't really been as much in the loop regarding like I guess like Resident Evil 3 is another game that's coming out soon, right? Um, and that series is interesting. That's an interesting series. So
April, I think.
right. So and that one, I mean like that could be something I look into as well, just because that series is like I know that I haven't played Resident Evil 4, but I've wanted to play that one. I enjoy that series when I did jump into it a few times. But anyway, I mean, like I say, the only other stuff that I look forward to is more or less just curiosity of if it's going to crash and burn, like Anthem, the re-release of Anthem, quote unquote. That's like something I'm curious about because I want to see if it crashes again. Um, so that's like for me, I'm just like playing it by ear whenever I see games. Um, so yeah, I mean, like, so let's segue a bit. So first, I want to talk a bit about our Twitter poll that we posted because this is a great
Okay.
segue.
Yeah.
We posted
Segue.
this a couple days ago,
It was like
and
Friday, wasn't it? It was like Friday, wasn't it?
yeah, it was
So
Friday.
the like went rolled over the weekend.
Yeah,
So
we just said, okay, we opened it up for a couple days, got a couple votes, which is great. I mean, the important thing though is that we did get the tiebreaker. Thank goodness, we didn't just have like an even number of votes and we got a tie. It was pretty close actually from the preference perspective, and all it was just do you prefer JRPG style games or Western RPG? So let's just break this down though. What is a JRPG? What is a Western RPG? Just like you see a game, what makes it a JRPG? You go on that end.
what makes it a JRPG? Um,
Besides certain
I
obvious things.
I mean, I think number one most obvious thing is the like an anime art style.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you see a game that has like a cartoonish or like it's hard to describe, but it's an anime art style, like very colorful, very bright.
Mm-hmm.
The characters usually have crazy hair with crazy hair colors with crazy spiky hair or
Mm-hmm.
flowy hair or just going all over the place. Crazy flashy animations. Generally they well, I think we'll get into some of the details
Sure.
later. Um, yeah, I mean, I would say that's like the number like if someone showed me a game with like that kind of art style and looked like that, I was like, "Oh, okay, that's like
Probably.
maybe not necessarily a JRPG, but definitely like a Japanese style
Right.
like developed game." Like,
Right. And there's certain I was gonna say there's a certain combat style I'd expect from JRPGs as opposed to Western. I mean a lot of the
yeah,
Western RPGs that I've seen have become I think a lot of the ones that we see that are AAA focused are mainstreaming all their games
yeah,
so that mechanics are simplified, and we'll get to that. But I mean, there's definitely this contrast that you can look at it and like I'll immediately know, oh yeah, this is JRPG, the certain art style, as you said. Whereas Western RPGs, sometimes Western RPGs do have an art style that's beyond just this realistic one that I see a lot, which is they'll have this like more realistic art style that people can more can associate with differently because they're trying to do something different with their graphics. They're trying to make it look more like what we see today.
Yeah.
So, um, let's talk about let's dive further into this. I think the best way to put it is let's just talk about mechanics. And you can say if they're good or bad, obviously. But I think probably starting with good ones might be best, particularly for JRPG. Um, just starting out with good mechanics, I think is going to be great because we've talked about this before on the side. But for whatever reason, JRPGs get this rap with reviewers in particular, and we've joked about this.
It's there was a period that I would say was like I think it was like when we were in college, so like 10 years ago or
Mm-hmm.
so, like between 8 to 10, like between yeah, like while we were in college, basically, like 8 to 12 years ago, I would say,
Mm-hmm.
there was this stigma with JRPGs that just like it was just like, oh, they're linear, so it's bad. And it was
Right.
just like, yeah, JRPGs are stale. They're like I don't know what it was. Like every JRPG that came out that wasn't like Final Fantasy or like super mainstream got like a 6.5 from like literally it's like they didn't even play it and they just gave it a 6.5.
We
It
joke
was
about
like
that. As like we've
and,
talked
and
about this all the time too.
and yeah, and again, we talked about it while we were in college. It was like, oh, a game. We just called it the Japan -1. It was
Right.
like, oh, this game came from Japan -1
Minus one.
automatically -1. Like, all right. So there was definitely a stigma again, like I would say 8 to 12 years ago, that I think has like died off. I don't know if JRPGs has really changed that much since then. Maybe they've evolved a little bit. They've been
Mm.
doing a little better with I guess, like, side quests and not being so just, like, singularly linear.
Singularly one story focus, we'll say.
Yeah.
But
Um, but yeah, I think they just had a little bit of a bad rap
yeah,
for a while for whatever reason. I think it was just kind of like a media pushed narrative, to be honest. It was like JRPGs are bad.
it felt like it. You would see reviews for some of them, and let's talk a little bit about the Western side. When Skyrim, for example, first came out,
Yeah.
I personally adored it, but
I did too. I loved that game when
yeah,
it came out. I played
you
it a lot.
you adore it because you're like, oh, I can do anything, and this is something that I want to touch on really quickly before we go any further, which is where I actually define the difference for me when I play these games is when I boot up a JRPG compared to a Western RPG. In like 90% of cases that I've seen, JRPGs will not let me make a player character. I always play, not
Yep.
always, I'm sorry, not always, but I'll play routinely as a character that's pre-generated. So like whenever we play, like Tales of Berseria, you're playing as Velvet. You're not playing as
Mhm.
yourself, quote unquote. But when you play a Western RPG, in the cases that I've come across, not all of them, but there's more of this influence of let's let the player create their own character and just push them into the world and say, okay, just role play. There's more role playing that happens in that side of it. Not to say that there isn't in JRPGs ever. That does happen, but I think like the role playing side of it gets an emphasis in like a game like Skyrim. It's like you create the character, you spend like an hour creating this character, and that's what I see a lot is with like Fallout, with a game like recently Outer Worlds is the same way for me. Outer
Mhm.
Worlds is like what I expect Fallout 4 to have been, and that's what I feel when I play these games. Um, so that's just like my perspective on the difference as well. And yeah, the JRPG -1 thing sometimes it does feel real, and I think it's just part of it is stuff like Skyrim came out, and they're like, oh, this is now you have to go against this game, and Skyrim has so many problems that didn't really get addressed when they reviewed it. And I mean, we've talked about this before. It's buggy like to an insane degree, where there are just like it's crazy, and the story is bad. Just like it's bad. There's no argument.
Yep.
It's bad.
Mhm.
Kill a dragon, great. That's it.
Great.
And the combat in that game, yeah, you can do magic. Okay, great. And it's just that's it though. This is like that's I'm talking about a lot of bad stuff here there, but it's just
let me show you the combat in Skyrim.
And that's it. And that's all. Maybe you bash him with your shield once in a while,
Oh, shield.
but
Oh, magic. Oh, heal.
and and just something that I'm going to highlight from your brother who's talking is like the the character in a JRPG, which I think is a benefit too. I don't think it's bad that you don't have a role play situation. Like you get an understanding of that character that's the main character from the JRPG really well, and the association of the party, that if there is a party in place, which is really nice.
Which
Like
which most JRPGs have
yeah,
parties.
yeah,
Most
yeah,
of them do.
yeah, they do, and I think that's good. And in Skyrim, you are the character, so your personality is defined by whatever you make it, which is good or bad. I mean, but like, and I'm talking about just Skyrim, but like there are some other games that do the same thing where you play that style of game. And like, okay, here's an NPC. It's sort of weird. Like there's so many NPCs in those games that you're kind of relying on finding the ones with personality, which it's hit or miss sometimes.
Yep.
So anyway, okay. What else? Other JRPG stuff.
I think let's hop into a discussion
Okay.
about like what Ghost kind of talked about here
Okay.
in the chat. So for those of you who aren't watching on Twitch or maybe on YouTube, HC Ghost 55, who is part of the Myriathon community, but here in chat says, honestly, character creation is one of the big turnoffs for me in WRPGs. It basically forces the main character to have no personality, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think this is something in games that is interesting. It's definitely usually a difference between JRPGs and WRPGs. And as Otto was talking about, most of the time in WRPGs, you create your own character
Mm-hmm.
and you are thrust into the world as this character. And in JRPGs, most of the time, you play as whoever the main character is.
Right.
In Tales of Berseria, it's Velvet.
Mm-hmm.
In Tales of Vesperia, it's Yuri. As in Trails of Cold Steel, it's Reen.
Mm-hmm.
Um, et cetera, et cetera. Pick your
Right.
favorite
Right. Right.
JRPG. Yeah, Final Fantasy VII, it's Cloud. That's one of the most popular ones. Um, and I think this is something that can be done real, like this sort of like self-insert character creation thing
Mm-hmm.
is something that can be done really well, and it can be done really poorly as well. It can go into the situation where the character has no personality.
Right.
And this is actually one thing that bugs me is I actually hate like the silent protagonist. It really takes me out of the experience in the game.
Insert Luger here. Insert
Luger
Luger here.
Luger from Tales of Exilia 2 is definitely one of them. But even in a game where I think it's done relatively well, which I know is one of your favorite games, and I would be surprised if it wasn't on your list,
Mm-hmm.
Dragon Age Origins,
Oh,
we
absolutely.
have a silent protagonist, and for me, it takes me out of it. I'm just like, you just like click the options,
Right.
and then the whoever you're talking to responds to you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Whereas on the other hand, a game I think does it really well is Mass Effect. Like you can't do anything in that game. There are definitely like certain options. There's like good cop, Paragon versus Renegade. But I think that game gives you a lot of really good options on like
Yeah.
what you want to do, how you want your character to be, and like you pick your dialogue options and then your character actually speaks.
Right.
He or she doesn't always say exactly what the dialogue option you selected says, but they say something along those lines.
Right.
Um, and I think in that one, it's done really well.
Yeah.
And then in games where I think it's done poorly, like as you mentioned, Tales of Exilia 2, which is a JRPG that like you don't get to create a character. You are given a character who is Luger Kresnik,
Yes.
but then like they give you choices with most of which don't mean anything,
They're the
and
same.
it's a silent protagonist, and I think it's just done really poorly.
Yeah.
Another game more recently that I think does the silent protagonist really poorly, and I think it's a disservice to the game, is Fire Emblem Three Houses. I hate Byleth and Fire Emblem Three Houses. They're a very uninteresting character.
Mm-hmm.
They give you a lot of choices in that game. Most of them don't do anything.
That's true.
And the character doesn't speak for the most part, except for some battle quotes and like
Yeah, it's battle quotes. Yeah.
a line here and there. And the story revolves around Byleth,
Mhm.
but like like the game just doesn't give you, it's not a good way of doing, it doesn't give you enough choices to feel like it's a self-insert. The game is still like a linear story,
Yeah.
and it's centered around this character that just like, and everyone in the world is like worships Byleth. It's
Right.
just like, and a spoiler alert, like in that game, at the end of part one, this war starts, and and then Byleth disappears for, what is it, 5 years
It's
or
5 years.
something
It's
like that.
5. Yeah.
And then it's just like nothing happens for
Yeah.
for
What the?
5 years until like this war is going on, but nothing's happening. It's just like a stalemate. And then
Mm-hmm.
Byleth shows up again all of a sudden, and oh my god, whichever
Let's
team
start
you're
it
on,
again. Yeah. Let's
they
start
just
it
win
again.
the war because Byleth is back. It's like,
Right.
is this character really that important? No, I don't like it's like, it's really annoying, and I actually like really dislike like the Avatar thing, like the way the Fire Emblem's going with Avatar. Like I would much rather they just give me like my lord. Like I wish, like, if you're playing Black Eagles, that Edelgard was the main character and like
Mm-hmm.
Byleth didn't exist basically, or was
Right.
just like more of a side character. It's like, okay, the
It's
professor,
it's funny
like,
because like with Fire Emblem in particular, don't want to derail too much because I think you're making
yeah,
good points. Is all of the house's main characters are just like 10 times more interesting than Byleth will ever be, and it's just like you get such a better sense of those people, the leaders of the houses, than anybody else. I mean, it's just like I love that game just for as a side
same,
comment, but it's
same.
just
I
like,
think it's a great game in
but there are
general. I just don't like
just
Byleth.
yeah, there are just some things you're just like, okay, like the 5 years thing. Like, come on, really? Nothing happened in 5 years to like until you come back. It's just a weird concept. So actually, I want to talk about Mass Effect really quick. And
Sure.
you're free to disagree. Mass Effect is the most JRPG Western RPG I've played for AAA's size like um games that have come out. It's the most JRPG I've ever played, not because of the art style, obviously, but because even when you create your character and everybody around you has personality. Even your character
Yeah,
that you create has a personality because you give them that, you instill that in them with
yeah,
Paragon, Renegade, and Neutral. The characters around you feed off of that personality really, really well in comparison to other games. It's got, even with all the stuff, the story's actually quite good. Besides, we won't talk about Mass Effect 3's ending. But beyond that, the story getting to that is pretty good. Mass Effect 2, I think, is both of our lists for top 5 near the end. It's really just like a amazing game. And it's with even with the lack of RPG elements, like you have less skills in that game. You get very little in that regard, which Mass Effect 1 had and Mass Effect 3 brought back. There were so many pieces of that game that felt, from the RPGs that I've played, the JRPGs in particular, I was like, yeah, if this was a JRPG that came out, it's hard for me to say, oh yeah, this is specifically, if we just like take the art style out of the equation, because it has
yeah.
a lot of really strong qualities. That really JRPGs have the same strong qualities. So I just wanted to make that comment in general because
Yeah, I see where you're coming from, and it's definitely like not quite. There are definitely like side quests and places you can
mhm,
go, but it's definitely, Mass Effect is much more like, definitely more focused on like the main story than other Western RPGs are, I would say,
yeah,
in general. And then even in like Mass Effect 2, like that, it's the main story, and then like the other major component in the game is like your party members, like
yeah,
side stories, like
yes,
that stuff.
yeah.
So yeah, I think I never thought about it that way, but I think it's an interesting point, and I think now that I'm thinking about it, I agree with it for the most part. Like,
And I know it's not like a perfect comparison. It's not perfect,
yeah,
obviously, but like for other games, like other genres, like Fallout 4, for example. It's just like not an RPG, really. It's got like the qualities of it, yes, but Ugh, that game. Like, I want to talk about bad qualities of some of these Western RPGs because I frankly could have this giant list. Number one bad quality, I'm going to talk about Bethesda in particular. Bethesda, crafting is not an inherently interesting RPG mechanic. Here's why. Skyrim, how many daggers did you make to increase your smithing?
Oh, so many iron daggers,
Maybe a
dude.
million.
So many, so much grinding for iron daggers.
I don't want to have to put a cheat code into a game to make it feel better. That's like number one thing I hated about that game series in particular. For whatever reason, like even with let's talk about Assassin's Creed Origins and like Odyssey and stuff like that.
Which, well, like, quick side comment. Like, every Ubisoft game is now like pseudo RPG, which
It's
is
not,
like,
yeah,
okay,
yeah, which
whatever.
it is what it is. But
Yeah.
Ubisoft and Bethesda, crafting is not a JRPG mechanic you should be putting your resources into. Be like, oh yeah, let's extend the game. What should they do? Oh, let's just make them craft for hours to get their gear. No, that's not interesting. I don't want to have to craft like get components for hours just to craft a leather satchel. It, oh my god, just want to like go after them and just be like, you guys need to pull it back.
I mean, that's like one of those things that, especially with like Ubi in the more recent games, where it's like they want you to pay for that MTX, time saver or whatever. They just make the game inherently grindy with the crafting or whatever to
It's
make. Oh yeah, you want it? $5, $5,
five
buddy.
dollars, and it's just like there's something else too. It's like with Fallout 4 in particular, with Bethesda games. I'm only harping on certain ones because they're the biggest criminals. It's bad when modders swoop in and it's like, yeah, we can improve this game like crazy with Fallout. Yeah, let's just modders swoop in, save the day, and make the game like actually semi appealing to go through. Whoever thought in Skyrim, there's a quest in Skyrim, and I swear, modders saved my life. It's called the Stone of Baranziah. It's this 25 stones are throughout the world, and they're hidden. They're completely hidden in places that you just like you wouldn't know. And somebody came in, some saint who, by the way, should be a messiah of modding. Somebody came in and said, you know what? We should put the stones of Baranziah on the map as a quest, so you can actually mark them and find them. And I was like, oh, this is a great mod. Let's implement this, and that made that quest bearable. Because it was unbearable to try and go through and so there's 25 in the area, but I'm gonna have to collect them in this massive map. It's just unbearable for that situation in particular because there's just like no inclination of where they are. They're just like, okay, it could be anywhere. It could be in like a haystack. It could be in a random cave. It's in a fortress somewhere. Bethesda, I'm talking about you a lot here because you got these really bad things that modders think. Thank you, Lord, come in and save you. But like Stones of Baranziah is a really bad one. There's just no excuse for not having like some kind of hint for some of these. It's just disgusting.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with that.
So, oh man. But then for me, like the one thing that's interesting, is actually with the Western side. Is looter shooters have been something that's like the looter shooter RPGs have been really interesting on the Western side that I wanted to talk a little bit about is something that I felt was good that came out of a lot of this stuff with like the Diablo concept. Because I think one of my favorite games is Borderlands 2 and it's on my list. And like obviously extracted from that is like Destiny 2, Division 2, which I talked about. There's some really good nuggets that have come out of this like these other RPG concepts, which I think are great from the Western side in particular. So I'm putting Bethesda down, but at the same time, the Western genre has really come out with some interesting ideas that have created a lot of amazing experience. So I just wanted to talk about some of those too, because for every Bethesda garbage RPG mechanic, there's like Borderlands 2, or there's Destiny 2 after release when they come out with like 2 expansions. And that's also
But
stuff
man,
that's good.
when Destiny 2 came out, though, that game was bad.
Oh yeah, it was frustrating. It was really
That game was
frustrating.
bad.
You play through it and you're like, well, is there anything else to do? Not really.
It,
Okay.
I mean, it was so clearly a cash in like by Activision at that point
Hmm.
when Activision still owned that was still under Activision's
Yeah.
umbrella. They're like, yeah, just make Destiny 2 so we can charge $60 for like the like a kind of like a new story, I guess, and then like but then like everything that I don't know. They just like Destiny 2 should have been an expansion to Destiny 1 is basically what I'm trying to say. It shouldn't have been $60.
No, it
Like
shouldn't have
there's
been.
just no way. And
But
it shouldn't have been like split. You should have been able to access like Destiny 1 content within Destiny 2 basically.
right,
Like it should all have been integrated.
that would have
Like
been nice for sure. I would have appreciated that. The game is definitely improved. I know Vis was in the chat and he left, but Vis loves that game and he'll sing its praises till compared to anything in the world. All I remember is the one time I tried to invite him to Division. He's like, "Nah, I'm Destiny 2." But he's it's definitely improved. I mean, there's no debate on that part. But yeah, Destiny 2 on release, you know, that like
you and I played it
we played
together.
it.
So.
It's great gunplay. It's not like the RPG mechanics are bad in that game. It's just like there's not much else to do besides the first game, game loop. You go through the game loop and there's like
Yeah.
not much else. So, um, anyway, what any other things about JRPGs? I talked like a lot about Western RPGs there because I wanted to make sure I got my Bethesda beatdown in.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Bethesda they were like the golden standard for a little bit. Bethesda and BioWare,
Right.
and those two have been on the downturn lately.
It's sad,
But
but what it is.
all right, let me rapid fire through some of these points that I have
Okay, go through it.
here.
Go through it.
So we talked about the silent protagonist and
Yeah.
self insert and like choices that don't matter. That's annoying. One thing on WRPGs that I find annoying. It's not in all of them,
Mm-hmm.
but level scaling. I
Ah.
find it
Yep.
really obnoxious.
Ah. Yeah.
It's just like
It's bad.
you get stronger, but all the enemies get stronger. Even if you go back to like the first area in the game, like the boars that you're fighting are all of a sudden like basically the same level as you. Like, wait, no, I just want to beat down some boars right
Yeah.
here. Like,
Yeah.
it's just like why like it makes even though like your character is getting way stronger, it doesn't feel like you're getting stronger because the world around
Oh
you
yeah.
just gets stronger with you, and it's just
Oh yeah. It's
like,
horrible. Just to
oh,
just to quickly
okay,
add on to that, while you keep going through your rapid fire, in like games like those that scale to you as well, if you spec incorrectly, you'll get destroyed. So
yep.
it's horrible. I agree with you. It's horrible.
Yeah, so that I find like really obnoxious. It also, I mean, I understand it's kind of a necessity in like an open world game where like you're allowed to go wherever and do whatever
Mm-hmm.
you want. Um, but I just find it just feels like you're not it just
Yeah.
feels like your character
No, I'm with
doesn't
you.
get very powerful because everything is the same level as you are around your level, no matter how strong you get.
I'm
Um,
I'm with you 100%. A lot of game experience is ruined because of that mechanic.
yeah. All right. Good. Something that I like that is mostly in both. Is like basically like skill trees and character progression. You talked about Borderlands. I love the skill trees in
Oh, it's great.
Borderlands.
Yeah, it's great.
Like you can spec your character like however you want. Even though there's three like skill trees for like
Mm-hmm.
set builds, but then there's like multiple builds within each skill tree, and
Mm-hmm.
you can kind of differentiate. I think like JRPGs don't usually use like skill trees, and when they do,
Mm-hmm.
often they're like very linear.
Sure.
So I think they don't do that quite as well. But then there's usually like differences. Like in Kingdom Hearts, for example, there's like the abilities and like the AP system.
Mm-hmm.
But so you just like unlock new abilities as you go and you use AP
Yeah.
to set them. It's not quite as much like a build, but it's like it's a way to customize your character.
Sure. Sure. Sure.
Um, so yeah, I like seeing your character like progress and get stronger, new attacks, new abilities, new skills. I
Oh
love
yeah.
that in general in RPGs.
Borderlands has done it
Um,
quite well. I think that's a great example.
yeah, Borderlands does it very well. Okay, moving on. Another good thing. This is again mostly to JRPGs because of the art style and the way
Sure.
things are done. Flashy animations. I love them super attacks, like whether they're like mystic arts
Oh
or
yeah.
S crafts, whatever the super abilities and just the flashy animations that
Yeah.
JRPGs do. It's just like, I don't know, it's just
It's
epic. I mean, and I love anime, so
it's
yeah,
the boss battles are really appealing in JRPGs. It's a
yeah,
stark difference between the Division's helicopter and
yeah,
something like playing Tales of Xillia and having like a god throw elemental meteors at you. It's
yeah,
definitely a different and much more appealing difference. Not that I don't like helicopters, but not exciting
yeah.
regarding what you've just talked about.
Yeah, I would say like in general, like JRPGs just have much more spectacle than WRPGs. Like
Yes.
boss battles in JRPGs, like especially like major ones when you're fighting like the major villains within the story, feel way more like because most like I don't know the combat system in WRPGs is often just like very simple, whether it just be like shooting or like Skyrim we talked about, you know.
Yeah, it's just hit him some
Swing
more.
like the boss battle just feels like another fight and the guy just has like more health or
Right.
like a few extra moves or whatever
It's
like
hardly cinematic in my opinion. It's hardly
so yeah,
cinematic.
I think JRPGs do that really well.
Yeah.
All right, moving on from that, another bad thing. This isn't exactly a mechanic, but it's more story related. But I'm just gonna call it "Teenagers Save the World" because
We've talked about this
um,
all the time.
this is a JRPG thing. I wouldn't say exclusively, but mostly. Um, it's just an anime thing in general. The main characters are always like just teenagers. They're
Yeah,
like
just
16
maybe
or like
18 at most.
you know, Tales of Vesperia really broke the mold with Yuri being 20.
Yeah, he's like
Like
20. It's just like, whoa, he's 20.
if you're more than like 25 years old, you better wrap it. You better wrap it up
Wrap
and
it
like
up.
open a shop somewhere
Oh
because
yeah.
it's like teenagers are like in real life are like very unstable and should not be going around saving the world. And it's
Mm-hmm.
just like I would love to see a JRPG where like the the main characters are like actually adults. They're like in their 30s
Even
or 40s.
even
Like
25. Even
yeah.
25. Can we push to 25? Because like
Yeah.
if I was in a JRPG, I wouldn't be
Or you
running a store. I'd be in the retirement home.
yeah, no, yeah, you're 30, you're in the like again, going back to Tales of Vesperia, like so Yuri is 20,
Mm-hmm.
Yuri the main
Yeah.
character is 20 and again, that's a little bit of a mold breaker, but and then some of the other party members are younger, like Rita I think is like 15,
Uh-huh.
Estelle, I don't remember, she's probably
It's like
16 or
I
18, I
thought
don't
it was like
remember.
17.
Um and then there's another character in the party named Raven who like they talk to him, they call him like old man, they act like this guy's about to like
Keel
literally keel
over.
over and die, he's that old, and like you look at his like profile, he's like 35 or something like that. It's like
we're almost there. We're almost keeling over. Man, what's up, old man? It's like I'm 35. Relax.
so
Oh man.
it's just a
I love that character by the way. I love
yeah,
Raven. He's
no,
fun.
Raven's great, that's a
Raven's
great
great.
game by the way.
Yeah.
um but yeah, I mean, it's just one thing in JRPGs that's just like, it's like, can we just have a game where like we actually have adults? Um, but yeah, hey Waldens, thanks. Yeah, for anyone who's in chat who's new, feel free to post in chat. We're mostly talking to each other, but if you have a question or you want to comment,
We'll address it, hopefully.
we'll hopefully address it. We may or may not, but we'll try.
Yeah.
Um,
You were
um,
rolling with your rapid
Yeah.
fire.
All right. So I think we're done with Teenagers Save the World. Um, back to the good. Um, we talked about this a little bit
Yeah.
with WRPGs, but I call it linearity slash story pacing. Um, so again, we talked about the stigma with JRPGs. 10 to 12 years ago, whenever it was, and one of the big parts of the stigma was like, oh, these games are linear, so they're bad. The thing about linear games is like yes, it's linear, but it also allows the developer to like actually pace the story appropriately as opposed to open world games where you can literally go do whatever you want and the story in general and the story pacing and thus the story in general just kind of suffers. Like
Right.
pacing is very important in any medium, whether it be movies, books, games, etc. Like, if you're telling a story, it needs to be paced appropriately. There needs to be, conflict, rising action, climax, falling action, conclusion,
Sure.
right? Like, and games are a little different because they're much longer. Like a movie's like what, 2 hours or something, and a game like an RPG is like gonna be like, especially JRPG is gonna be minimum like 40 hours. So there's
Yeah.
gonna be some padding in there,
Hmm.
but like a linear game allows you to pace out the story much better as
Right.
opposed to, again, an open world where you just have to, like, the player can literally do whatever you want, so it's very difficult for the
Yeah.
developer to actually pace the story.
Which
Like,
I agree with. Western RPGs, like, let's take like we'll use a different example. Let's take Dragon Age, actually. Which, by the way, it's a good game, but why do spellcasters no longer heal?
well,
Explain that to me,
also
Bioware.
I mean, the story just kind of sucks,
Yeah,
to
it's
be
not very good.
honest. But
No, it's not very good.
Corypheus is just a terrible
Perseus
villain.
is as
Like,
exciting as when I take Stella on the walk and know she's about to go to the bathroom.
yeah,
It's just like I know it's what's gonna happen. It's not there's no like tension. It's gonna happen. Um and like the thing with that game is like I could spend 20 hours not addressing the story. In like other games where it's a sandbox environment, you could spend 100 hours not addressing the story and then go back to the story. Just be like, what's happening again? So I'm with you with certain Western RPGs. There are some that do a good job of mitigating when they're more
yeah,
linear.
I think Mass Effect, which we talked about earlier, does
Yeah,
it
they do a
much
good
better
job. They do a
because
good job.
there's limited side content, and
Right.
like JRPGs have been getting better recently with like adding more side content. Like the main story is still linear, but like you'll get to a town or something, and there'll be like a couple of side quests to do before you need to just progress the main story.
Right.
So they've been doing a little better with that recently, but the main story is still like linear. And I just think in general, at least like the I generally enjoy the main plot of JRPGs better than Western RPGs, partially because of the pacing, and there just is more focus on the main
Mhm.
story as opposed to the open world aspects of the game.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you.
There are
Um,
exceptions. There are
oh,
exceptions, of
definitely.
course.
Of course there are. But we're just specifically talking about some of the stuff that uh, we'll say generalization.
Okay, and moving on from sort of linearity and story pacing, my final point on this sort of good bad thing is MTX or microtransactions. This includes cosmetics, DLC,
Hmm.
etc. So this can be good and bad, but more often than not, it's bad. On the
Yeah.
good side, on the good side, cosmetics are pretty harmless, but they can be overpriced a lot of the time as far as microtransactions go,
Yep.
especially in like JRPGs, because everyone loves to dress up their favorite anime character in a swimsuit
Of course.
or
I mean, it's
a maid outfit
yep.
or whatever
Absolutely.
your kink is, whatever it is.
Yep. Everybody has a thing.
Um, DLC also like can be good if it's substantial, but it can also be like very overpriced, or like, if they, or like Mass Effect 3, which had on disc DLC, which is just, that's a no-no. That's a freaking no-no. Like,
Gross.
um
That was gross. Made me sick.
um so yeah, if it's DLC that actually like comes out at least a few months after the game and
Mhm.
actually adds to the game, like story wise, content wise, then I'm okay with it. Um, the other thing that, and again, I think JRPGs do this more than Western RPGs, with the exception of like the more recent like Ubisoft games where you can literally just buy anything,
Oh,
uh, is like you'll see some JRPGs where like they're like you can buy the super the oh man, what do they even call it? Just like item pack. They're like you can just like buy a pack for like $5 that contains like, 5 apple gels, 5 orange gels, 5 life bottles, like 10,000 EXP and like 10,000 gal, and it's like what? Like
why is this
why?
here?
Why? like, why would you buy? You're like cheapening the experience of the game. You're just like making the game artificially easy by like
Right.
paying money. Like, I hate stuff like that. Where I'm like, I mean, I get it. Maybe a person doesn't want to struggle and like just wants to get through the game quickly, but it's like
Yeah.
why are you letting me buy like
Oh, absolutely.
EXP and stuff like that? Like, oh, I just don't
It's
want that in
I
my game. Like,
Let's dive quickly into Assassin's Creed, and then I want to talk about another example that's not an RPG necessarily, but um, Assassin's Creed had a microtransaction to get an EXP boost, and this is like the most egregious thing I've seen next to another Ubisoft game, which was Ghost Recon Breakpoint, where you could just buy anything. It was gross, and they did change it after people were upset, but that's the kind of stuff with, like, you say you're talking about cosmetics, and one of the things I want to talk about is like EXP boosting, or like in-game items boosting, so like the Apple Gel side of it. You remember Dead Space 3? You could buy scrap collectors,
yep,
and like those, like the crafting materials collection. You
yep,
could buy that. And it's not an RPG, but the concept was something that these developers, they're not developers, I'm sorry, publishers, they tried it, and it all backfired. And when I saw like a Ghost Recon Breakpoint, they're still trying it. So it's not going away, which is frustrating. And I don't get why they don't just get rid of it and move on to like cosmetics. I think cosmetics are perfectly fine as long as you're not being silly with it. And what was the other one you had in here? Items, it depends, but like, you know, reasonable DLC. Like, let's take Mass Effect. Shadow Broker. I love that DLC. That's a good example.
yeah, that one's good.
That's a pretty good example, even
And
if
I've
it's
heard like
overpriced or
the
not.
heard though like the DLC for Witcher 3 is really
Yeah,
good.
the
For
DLC for that game I've heard is
example.
good too, and those are good examples. But there's also the bad apples. It's just so frustrating when with, especially with EA. Sad, very sad. Anyway, let me
Yeah,
just
yeah. Cosmetics hit and miss. Sometimes they can be like really overpriced, and I wish they would let you unlock them more often than not in the game as opposed to pay for them. But again, it's not like cosmetics don't affect the game. It's just playing dress up, and
yeah,
like if you want to dress up your favorite anime character, like, oh sorry, and they make you pay for it. I mean, again, it doesn't as long as it doesn't affect the gameplay. I don't really care personally. I don't often buy that kind of stuff, but that's me.
yeah. I mean, it's definitely like some cases I understand when they put in there. They're the EXP boosting always gets, so I never forgive
Yeah,
them. Um,
yeah,
I talked about all my other points that I was going to talk about, and like you nailed some pretty much on the head. So I don't know. Any final thoughts on this discussion? I mean, I know your preference is JRPGs. I think just like in general, but there's obviously some, but I think
yeah. I prefer generally the story focus, the art style, the spectacle, and the more complex combat systems that JRPGs have to offer
sure,
as opposed to Western RPGs. Though,
sure,
again, there are some Western RPGs that I adore,
yeah,
like like Mass Effect 2, especially. But Mass Effect 1 has its issues, but it's still a good game. Mass Effect 2 is great.
yeah.
Um,
So just to comment quickly, Walden's asked us what we're playing. We talked about it at the beginning. Um, I'm playing a multitude of games, and Boone was playing a Near Automata. But
yeah,
like I said, if you want to, you can go back in the VOD and check that out. And let's segue into our top fives. Or maybe we should. Do we want to do
let's
just top
do
fives, or maybe some
let's
honorable
do.
mentions as well? But
Yeah, we
um,
can do. Are we gonna? We're gonna end with the
I
underrated.
think we're going to end with some underrated games, and maybe I
Okay.
can throw my honorable mentions in there as well. So let me pull this up. Hold on. There's some awesome production
All right.
value
Yeah,
happening
we
here.
we 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 got production
We
value on this
have
show,
minor
kiddos.
production value. Spoon, why don't you start us off with your number five? I think is appropriate, or yeah, number five.
Yeah, let's start with number
Okay,
five.
so
All
Spoon's
right.
number five.
My number five. We've talked about it a couple times already, actually, and I just mentioned it. It's the only Western RPG on my list, and it's Mass Effect 2.
Matt, yep. Any reasons
It,
why besides what we've talked about?
yeah, I mean, I think it's mostly what we've talked about. The game's really fun. There's a nice, it's not super complex, but there's a nice like skill tree. The shooting mechanics are fun. The characters are awesome. The choices you make are awesome. The main story isn't great, but the side stories with the
Yeah.
characters certainly are. And overall, it's my favorite. It's my favorite BioWare game,
Mhm.
and definitely my favorite Western RPG. Um, of all time.
It's a good choice, and I'll be, you know, probably talking about that one soon. So
Yeah.
my number
So,
5, which I'm going to show now, is Borderlands 2, the only looter shooter on this list for both of us, I think. And the reason why I like this one is I think it hits all the right notes for me. The gunplay is great. The humor is great. I don't even think the story is bad at all. I think it's like it's just so simple. I can't even say it's bad. And
it has a great villain.
it's just a good villain.
Handsome Jack is an amazing carries that story.
Yeah, I've heard some people get kind of annoyed with him, but I think he's the right kind of humor for me in the context of the game when you go through all the quests. And just being able to cooperatively play with players, it's like it hits all the right beats. It hits all of them compared to any looter shooter I've played. Like it's got all the appeal for me in the world. So I'm going with Borderlands 2 at number 5. Spoon, your number 4, drum roll.
All right, drum roll please. Number 4. We haven't. This hasn't been mentioned yet today, actually. But um, I don't know. I can't think of a way to build it up, so I'm just gonna say it. This is Xenoblade Chronicles 2 for the Nintendo Switch.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And yeah, it's the third game in the Xenoblade series. Even though it's number 2, there was Xenoblade Chronicles X, and then
Okay.
Xenoblade
Mm-hmm.
Chronicles 2. Um, and yeah, I mean, it's a JRPG. It's for the Switch. Um, Great story, amazing world, cool art style, fun kind of like fun combat system. Walden's get out of here. I will agree that Xenoblade 1 actually has a better story, in my opinion, but I think the overall package in Xenoblade 2 is better. Like, I think I like the characters and the world better in
Okay.
Xenoblade 2. The combat system is way more in depth and better. There was some like gotcha elements to the game. It wasn't paid or anything, but there was like you had to like open these core crystals to like um get your blades. Like
Okay.
blades were like these like characters that were like attached to your human characters, and it was
Okay.
like the way you fought, just like
Well,
an
okay. A loot
very
box and
baseline.
okay, but it doesn't
And yeah,
cost anything, I guess.
it
So
doesn't count as anything. You just like had to pick them up, and like you had to open them, and like there were like basically all you wanted were the rare blades, which
got
were
it.
the actual characters. Then there were a lot of like non-rare or common blades that were just like
Okay.
generic and terrible, basically. So
Okay.
that was like, I don't know, like it made sense in the context of the world why it was done this way, but it was just like, why? Like, why is this here? Like, why is there a gotcha game within like an RPG? Which again, like you can't pay for. Like, it's not like you can't like go and buy like a 100 core crystal pack for
Right.
$20 or whatever. Like, you
Yeah,
can't
something like
do
that.
that. It's just like there's nothing like that.
Sure.
But again, the game is epic. It took me about 100 hours to complete. There's plenty of side, like that's not just the main story. There's like a lot of side content. Um, the world is epic. The characters are fun. The
Mm,
story is definitely like very interesting, and there are some like nods and connection to Xenoblade One. The
sure.
soundtrack, mwah,
Okay.
oh,
We didn't talk much about soundtracks, but maybe we should talk a little bit about that at the end. Because some of the
okay,
soundtracks,
yeah,
I don't think there's anything that's good or bad. We didn't talk about the
yeah,
soundtracks at all. But anyway,
yeah.
but so good. This is the one that was You're Done, right? Is this the You're Done game? This
Oh
was You're
yeah,
Done, right?
this
This
is you're
this
done, you're
this
done,
was the
you're done.
meme game. This was the meme
Yeah,
game so many great memes came out of this one. So I appreciate
Yeah.
this one just for that
And
regard.
also just responding to chat as well. I know I said it already. I think Xenoblade 1 definitely has the better story, like no doubt about it. But I think as the overall package, I like 2 better.
Sure. All right. Let's
Okay,
move.
Walden's. Can we ban this man?
Someone banned.
Xenoblade 2's music is so good.
Oh my
Like
god.
like Xenoblade 1 has like a couple of tracks that Xenoblade 1 has a couple of tracks that are just like amazing. Like, can you do you know our names? Like that track is just and there's a couple of other tracks in Xenoblade 1 that are just like mind blowing. But again, I think the overall package of the soundtrack in Xenoblade 2 is way better. Like it's way more consistently just like really good. More Ardain field theme, so good. Like
Like I said, I think there are certain. I don't think there's any distinction, by the way, between games where soundtracks are. Like I said, we haven't really talked about that at all. I think it'd be good to talk about it just like briefly. So my number 4, I guess I'm just gonna show it. I actually put Fire Emblem Three Houses on here. I
good choice.
really, really enjoyed this game. I'm playing the new hard mode that came out. I forgot what it's called, like
Oh,
maddening. Yeah,
maddening
maddening.
difficulty.
Holy moly! Really challenging. It has the mechanic where when an ambush comes in, they immediately go.
The ambush spawn. The
The
ambush
ambush
spawns.
spawn
Yeah.
bully factor is what it should be called. And it's like, but the rest of the game, besides just Byleth being, the silent protagonist, we talked about that. I I thought this game was really fun. I thought it was a nice change of pace to have that world environment. I will admit the world environment that you were in near the end of the game was really stale because you got through everything. But just like going around and like interacting with all the characters, I think there was a lot of cool stuff that I like to play around with in that game, and it does have some decent replay value with going through the different houses. And I really liked all the main house characters, even like
Yeah.
Dimitri. Dimitri, I love. Claude was great. Edelgard obviously is really popular. I think she's good for what she is. Um, like they were all great, and even some of the house characters that were like the students were really fun. There's just like a lot of fun elements of the game. I like the the actual the turn based strategy part of it too. It was done really well, and I certainly loved nuking people with Lysithia. But it definitely has flaws as Ghost is saying, but for what it is, that I really loved playing it. So now on to your number 3.
All right. My number 3 again. I've mentioned the series a couple of times in this episode so far. But this is The Legend of Heroes: Trails of Cold Steel. I put number 3 because it's the most recent game in the series, and it's my favorite of 3 of all the games in this series that I've played. But the Cold Steel arc is kind of a package deal in my like the story builds on itself.
Mhm.
But um I don't know what else like this series is has kind of taken me over the past year. Like I just started playing this series like last year, like
Mhm.
around this time last year. So maybe it's been a little more than a year since I've gotten into this series, and I started with Cold Steel 1. Um I played Cold Steel 2, and I played the Sky trilogy, and then Cold Steel 3 I played over winter break.
Mhm.
And they're turn-based RPGs, not entirely turn-based, so there's like a speed mechanic to it where like you can get, if your character has a really high speed, you can get like multiple turns. But
Sure.
awesome story. I think it's actually some of the best world building I've ever seen in any game. Like
Hmm.
the world is so well developed. The characters in the party are interesting. Um, the combat system is it's fun. It's not the best combat system ever, but it's fun. It's flashy. It's easily breakable. There are like broken mechanics in all of the games. They're different
Mhm.
in all of the games, but you can definitely it's very exploitable. Good customization. I don't know what else to say. Yeah,
Okay.
it's an incredible series. It is a commitment though. It is a long running series, and within the different arcs. So there's like the Sky arc. There's the Crossbell arc, which those games haven't been released here in the West,
Mhm.
but I think they will eventually. And then there's the Cold Steel arc. So the Sky arc has 3 games, Crossbell has 2, Cold Steel has 4. Um, the fourth one isn't out here yet, but as I talked about earlier, should be coming out if not this year, probably next year.
Okay.
Um, Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's a commitment to get into. They're very long games. Like Cold Steel 1 and 2 each took me 80 hours. Cold Steel 3 took me 105 hours to beat.
Yeah.
The Sky games are a little bit shorter. They're all available on Steam, and they go on sale relatively often. So if you're looking to dive into a deep, deep story-driven JRPG series, I can't recommend the it's called The Legend of Heroes, and then Trails of something,
Yeah.
Trails in the Sky or Trails of Cold Steel.
Yeah. I
Can't
paraphrase it
recommend them
here.
enough.
Paraphrase it here, but yeah, this is something that I've heard from Spoon over the course of the year. He enjoys it. If you're committed to it, go for it. For me, I play 10 different games at once. The number
Yeah,
increases every time I mention it.
you'd never get through
I never
one of
get
these
through it.
games.
I
You'd
never
never
get
get
through it.
through it.
I'm sure I enjoy it, but I just never get through it. My number 3, we talked about it already, is Mass Effect 2. Um Something that I want to touch upon here, and I do want to give credit where it's due with Bethesda. I feel bad for bashing them the whole time. Some of these Western RPG games, and like Mass Effect 2, I can get lost in the codex. And with Fallout, I get lost in all the little micro stories and lore with these games. There's so many. There's a YouTube series that I want to talk about really quickly because I think it's so good that it deserves mention. And it's a guy on YouTube. I want to find it. It's just like he's just like all he does is talk about Fallout lore. His name is the Epic Nate 315 on YouTube. I'm gonna post it because I love this channel. This is this is the kind of thing that I really like about these certain Western RPGs. And not that JRPGs don't have it, but Mass Effect 2 also has this where you can just get lost in the codex and just you get so much information from it. You could just read it. It's just like this appendix of info. But you can just learn so much about, and you'll never, if you don't go through it, you'll never fully grasp everything that's happening. They'll talk about it in the game, but you'll never fully get it unless you actually dive in. And that's something I really appreciate. So Mass Effect 2, besides the stuff that Spoon talked about, has this element to it where, not to say JRPGs don't have it, because that wouldn't be fair, but there's just something about getting lost in an appendix or in like these little stories that I really love, and there's just like something unique I find every time I play. So that is just what I wanted to talk about with this game. Excellent game, great gunplay. Yeah, the main story isn't perfect, but it encapsulates the kind of game where you can just sit down and you can play it a couple times, and there might be something refreshing each playthrough. Spoon,
Yep.
number 2.
Number 2, anyone who knows me, this will come as no surprise, I think. I won't delay any longer. It's Persona 5. Released in 2017. Latest game in the long-running Persona series. It's the only Persona game I've played, actually. I played a little bit of P4 after I played P5, but I didn't get through it. Um, I I know I keep saying this. I'm not sure what else to say.
No, go
It's a
for it.
turn-based RPG. The game is. I will say. I will. The game is very slow. Like there's a lot of stuff that isn't like the main like gameplay. It's kind of divided into like real world sections where like you're like a student and you actually like you play every day. Like there's a calendar in the game and it just goes like day by day by day.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't play a full year, but you play close to a full year. Um and yeah, you have to go to school, you have to like and then you have to like make friends with people, and then there's obviously a main story around this. And this game is definitely a teenagers save the world type game.
Of course,
You're a bunch of high schoolers and you have to
of course.
save the world from impending doom.
Mm-hmm.
Turn-based RPG. Yeah, I mean, you go through the motions. As I said, the game is really slow because you have to play the sort of the the in between sections. But if you're into that and you like all the characters, I think are really interesting. All of them have like backstories and stuff to learn about them. You can form what they call I think they're called social links in that game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or am I confusing it with a
Ghost,
different game?
Ghost, confirm, Ghost.
Um, but you can up your social link level. Oh no, they're confidants.
Confidants. Okay.
But from 1 to 10, and you learn about there's like episodes for each, like 10 different episodes for each, not only party members but like other characters. Like there's the teacher, one of your teachers. There's um this like shogi girl. There's like a doctor.
Mm,
There's a news reporter. There's like a politician. There's so many different characters in this game.
sure.
It's such a cool world, such a cool story. The combat is pretty standard, like turn based type stuff that you would
Sure.
expect. Not a lot to talk about there, to be honest. Um, really long game. Took me like 90 to 95 hours to beat. Um, but again, very worth diving into if you haven't already.
I have a comment on this game. I've only watched it, never played it. The artistic style of this game is actually incredible. It's like the
Oh yeah.
one
Oh,
thing I've taken away from
again,
this game.
the music, mwah,
The music is
just
good. I
amazing.
do like making my own rendition of it, but it's good. And like I said, that art style is so unique and interesting. I can't get enough of that one. That is a great art style compared to anything I've seen, and it's I will sing that art's praises. So,
The game just has a style in general,
mhm.
whether it be like both the art style and the music. The game is just so it just has a style
Yeah,
to it where it's just like, whew,
and I like that. I
it
like seeing
hits.
that. I did like
It
watching
hits.
that. So, um, any other comments? Otherwise, moving to
Nope.
mine.
Go
Okay,
ahead.
okay. Number two for mine is my all-time favorite Western RPG. I can't sing its praises enough. I've played this game too often. Dragon Age Origins, the
Yep,
most
I mentioned it earlier.
beautiful, ugly because the graphics were definitely dated even when it came out. It just didn't look visually perfect. Which I was obviously like the first time you see it and the first time it was mentioned to me, I looked at the graphics and I was like, well, this seems kind of like the graphics seem a little dated. It seems weird that the graphics look like this when I expected a bit more. Like that's around the time like Mass Effect 2 was coming out. And like the difference in graphics was like it was weird. So I was like, okay, I come into the game and it's just like it plays. The combat style is D&D combat style, which is weird. It's a weird combat style, which I think is it does throw some people off. But the story is, I won't say it's like really extravagant and amazing, but it's like good enough. You're definitely like able to feel a certain way about the characters. Like, oh yeah, this character's a jerk. Got to get rid of him, got to deal with him. But there's some great choices that you get to make throughout the game. There's some, nice little clever twists. The environments are really fun. It's a challenging game. It is a challenging game when you do bring up the difficulty. There's like one particular dungeon that I swear was like the bane of my existence, which is the it's the dwarves when you go visit the dwarves and there's this just like cave network of caves you have to go through to find whatever her name is again. It's like starts with a B. But she's like got this hammer that creates golems But you have to go through like 3 different bosses, including her, and it's just the craziest mission. It's really long. You know, I don't think it's a perfect mission at all, but it just like highlights how tough this game was sometimes. And like this is like a really great game. I loved all the characters. I thought they were great. The interactions were funny. Morgan disliked everything, which I thought was funny. And it's just like the way that it was that it was built, including its story, including the choices and everything. Like to me, it felt slightly better, even with the no voice lines from the main character, than Mass Effect 2. It had like a certain appeal compared to Mass Effect 2. Not that I didn't like Mass Effect 2, obviously. Put it at number 3 on this, but Dragon Shoe had that like little extra secret sauce that made it just slightly better, which is why I was a little bit saddened that Inquisition wasn't more similar to that, and Dragon Age 2 I don't speak of. So,
Yeah, DA2 was.
but this game was great. This is a game. It's on PC on Steam as well. I played it on console, but like it's still. I bet it's still good. I bet it's still good, still playable.
I
It's just dated graphics.
I can't count the number of times Otto played this game while
Too
we were in
many.
college.
It was too
So
many.
many
I
times.
love it. I loved all the characters I could make. The tank character, the rogue style character, with like the backstab rogue was insane in this
Mage
game.
was oh
Mage
Mage
was
was
OP, obviously. You could have a party of 3 mages and a tank, and you could just stomp everything. On harder difficulties, it was different, obviously, but it was crazy. Anyway, this is a great game. Love this game so much. Number
all right.
1.
My number one. Again, I think anyone who's not new here and knows anything about me and who's watched my stream will see this coming a mile away.
Okay.
It's Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix.
There it is. There it is.
Um, and I think as an overall package, I actually think Persona 5 is a better game as an overall package. But in my opinion, hands down, Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix has the best combat system in any game I have ever played. It all the elements of it moves it's so smooth. All the elements of it you can combine with summons, limits, drive forms, magic, physical combos. Like it just flows so well together in the combat. And the story isn't bad. I know people will say that like maybe KH2 is the game where the story started to jump the shark a little bit in the Kingdom Hearts series, and I'm not going to entirely disagree with that. But I think KH2 actually still has a pretty good story. I think there were some really good elements to it. I think Riku's arc in KH2 is really good. Um, I think, yeah, Ghost.
Of the,
Um, I think I like the organization as villains. They're interesting. And yeah, I think the story ties like pretty well together. Um, for the most part. And again, like the music, of course, is incredible, but the music is always incredible in Kingdom Hearts. To be honest,
yeah, it is. Really is.
Yoko Shimomura is a goddess of music composition.
It is beautiful.
Um,
It is beautiful.
and yeah, I mean the combat to me is just perfect. Again, it's my favorite combat system of any video game ever. Like, you know, not that's not just RPGs. Any video game ever, it's my favorite combat system. Did speedruns of this game for a very long time, and I may go back to it at some point. I haven't played Remind yet, Walden, so I'll be the judge of that when I play it. But from what I've seen, I don't think I'll agree with that. Um, yeah, I mean, again, I think some of the like even I think even both um Trails of Cold Steel 3 and Persona 5 are like overall a better package probably than Kingdom Hearts 2 just cuz like their story is just like so much better, but I just I just love Cage 2 way too
Yeah,
much to not make it number one.
it's
It's such an amazing game. I can
it
play it over and over and over again.
it's a great game. This is like the one of the few games that you had on this list I've played, and it's really fun. I enjoyed it. The music is great. Um, this was a really good. This was a really fun game. Even if someone doesn't think it's just overall good, it was fun to play. So I'm with you here. This is a good game to have on here. Can't go wrong with it. So and the music is so good. So my number one, Walden's is going to be disappointed. It's not Witcher 3. Ghost was right. It's Chrono Trigger. I I love this game so much. This game
And
was
and you didn't play it until we were in
didn't play it
college, I
until
think.
college.
Yeah.
Didn't know it existed until college. I loved it so much. I hunted down a Super Nintendo copy of it to play on my Super Nintendo. It was so fun, and it did time travel really well. It was really interesting. There were some really fun twists, especially with Magus. I love Magus. So his story might be one of my favorite stories in all of gaming. It was so fun to follow Magus's story in this and just like discovering why he was the way he was and like what his motivations were. This is like my crowning jewel of games and things that like I can't have enough of this one. It's like potato chips for me. It's just like just like can't have enough of this particular game. It hits all the right beats. It's the combat, it's turn based, but it's got like the speed mechanic, and it's just like you get a very small party, but all your party members are really fun, and especially like, you know if it's a spoiler or not, you can get Magus as a character, or you can not. I mean, it's a great choice to decide that, and the final boss is like the music in the game is great. Even the final boss music, really amazing game. Something that I think has really tested time as well, and that's difficult to do now with some of these games. This game, if it came out today, I mean, we saw Octopath Traveler come out today. You have this game come out today with like some updated graphics, it would fly just fine. Whereas I hate to admit this, but if you were to play Ocarina of Time right now, it probably wouldn't say the same thing. So this is like that's why I like this game more than just about all the others that I've talked about. It's wonderful, beautiful game. Yeah, can't say enough about it. Recommend it to anybody, and I think it's like I haven't played many JRPGs. My favorite singular game I've ever played, and I'm glad that somebody introduced it to me.
Yep.
So okay, let's talk a bit about underrated games or maybe some honorable mentions. You have some I've seen listed here. Talk about. We do have one that intersects. So talk about East, please.
Okay. Yeah, let's talk about Ys a little bit. So Ys, or which is spelled YS, I'll type it in chat, um, is a series developed by Falcom, which is also the same developer who develops the Trails series, which I talked about earlier on my list. And yeah, they're just kind of fun action RPG like romps. There's a story, not too much to write home about. It's just kind of like the main character is the same for all the games. His name is Adol,
Mm-hmm.
and he it's like the concept of the story is like it's Adol's chronicles as like an adventurer, and he just goes to these different places and does
Yeah,
adventuring things. He solves
yeah,
the issues in that whatever region he's in. And yeah, it's just really fun action combat. You just run around slaying,
yeah.
and the soundtrack is just full of bangers, just like rockin' bangers for days. And I mean, there's not much else I can say. The games are just they're just fun to play. Like,
Oh yeah.
I
I
mean,
mean,
they're not the most complex combat systems either. They're just fun. Go
I
ahead.
I agree with you. Like I said, this is the one game that we both had. your brother Ghost introduced me to this one. I'm glad he recommended it through my previous recommendation system that no longer exists. But this was like one of the better ones that I got recommended, which isn't necessarily like hard to top because Shaq Fu Reborn was recommended. But this was a really good one. It was like, besides just the raids, East 8 was really fun. It was really fun combat. I enjoyed the exploration part. The story, yeah, it wasn't anything to write home about, but it was enough where I liked I liked the payoff of it. And
Yeah,
the
it keeps
characters
you
are
going.
nice.
It's the story's good enough, like it's interesting enough to like keep you going, but it's not
Yeah.
gonna blow you. It's not gonna blow you away.
No, it won't.
Like,
It's just, and the characters are fine. You know, they're enjoyable. Like there was a lot of appeal to that game. So I didn't put it on my list, obviously, but yeah, I mean, I think it's a really fun JRPG.
yeah, and there are 8 games, actually 9, because there's East Origin as well. They're all on Steam. Again, kind of like the Trails games, they go on sale relatively often.
Mm,
They're really fun. They're not that long. Um, and East 9 is out in Japan. It's not out here, but we're kind of expecting a release on that maybe this year or next,
yeah.
probably. Um, so yeah, those games are fun.
So you have Trails on here, but you talked about Trails.
I talked about Trails a lot.
There's
Again,
a
it's a commitment to get into that series. So
there's a
yeah,
third one on your list.
yeah, there is, and I this one's really niche. If you're a Gundam or Mecha fan and like strategy RPGs, I would recommend the Super Robot Wars or Super Robot Tyson series, which are they don't release here. You have to import them. Um, but there are at least the more recent games. There's actually like an English version where like I think in like I don't know, not in Japan, but like in some of the other Asian countries, they release like a version that's actually translated into English.
Mm,
And I think they're on Switch as well. But they're just like mashup games of like different mecha series in Japan, mecha anime. So like Gundam's obviously always in it. Um, Code Geass has been in it before. Gurren Lagann. Um, there's a lot of others that I'm actually not that familiar with. There's like Macross and this thing called Mazinger, which I don't know anything about. Some other mecha series. They're pretty fun strategy RPGs. You kind of have to be into mecha to enjoy them. The
mm.
stories aren't that good because they're like crossover games, so it's kind of hard to make a
Yeah.
good story because they're kind of mashing up a bunch of series
Oof.
into one. So
Crossover games are
yeah,
always
it's hard.
tough. Oof.
Um, the other one I put on here is exclusive to Gundam, and this one is on Steam. It's called and it's a heck of a title, but let me
Do
hit you
it.
with it.
Do it.
It's called SD Gundam G Generation Cross Rays. That's it.
Okay, that's not too bad
Um,
actually. That's not too bad. I was expecting more, so that's
and it's
good.
basically Super Robot Wars, but it's like it's only Gundam,
Okay.
and it's not. They don't really try to cross over. You just like play through the stories of like the different Gundam series that are represented in it. So there's like Gundam Wing, Gundam Seed. I'll type it in chat
Yeah,
again.
type it
SD
out.
Gundam G Generation
GG.
Cross Rays.
Say that
Um,
5 times as fast as possible in the chat.
this one is on Steam. It released, I think, in like December. Um, and yeah, it's a strategy RPG. Again, you have to be a gun like in order to like this, you have to be a Gundam fan, to be honest. Which I am. Um, I think it's pretty cool. It has has really cool animation. They do a lot of justice to
Mm,
like the different attacks that the different Gundams had. It has a good roster, as I said. Gundam Wing, Gundam Seed, Double O, Iron Blooded Orphans, um, and then there was DLC for like Gundam X, G Gundam, Gundam Age. So yeah, I mean it covers most of like the side story Gundam series. Just it doesn't have anything from the main line Gundam, which is
yeah.
Universal Century or UC. But I'm more of a fan of the side stories, to be honest. So it was good for me. I'm a big Gundam fan again. If you're not a Gundam fan, just ignore me.
Or
But
if you're just like,
if you're into that,
I guess if you're a turn-based fan, you just really want to play a turn-based game, it might be
yeah,
enjoyable.
I yeah.
I
I
don't know.
actually have I actually have one more to recommend.
No, go
Actually, do
for
you
it.
want to go? Okay,
No,
I have
go for it.
one.
Go for it.
I have one more to recommend, and this is a recent release. And I just picked it up on Switch because I was traveling and wanted something to
Sure, sure,
play
sure.
on the plane. It's called Langrisser 1 and 2. This is published by Nisa. It's a remake of some old Genesis games. I don't know if they were actually called Langrisser or something else.
Uh-huh.
Um, Strategy RPG. Again, they remade and remastered the game entirely with like new graphics, new sound. Um, it's a little different. It's like kind of. I don't want to say it's similar to Fire Emblem. Pretty different from Fire Emblem, but it's a strategy RPG. Um, Pretty standard like medieval
Okay.
theme. Um, yeah, it just released though. It's on Steam and Switch and PS4. I think it's like $50 though. It's a little
Okay.
pricey
Well,
for what it is, but
yeah.
it's cool.
All right. I've got a couple. I'm just gonna comment beforehand. There are a couple of games we didn't talk about, and I just want to say that when we were thinking of this, the topic for this podcast, we were talking about RPGs, and I was coming up with RPGs I've played. I didn't even think of Pokemon, which is weird.
Everyone's heard of Pokemon.
But the
Like,
thing is, like, I didn't even think of it on a list. I was just like, I just
yeah, it's
completely
different.
glossed over it.
It's very different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's,
I don't think of Pokemon when I think of RPGs
which is weird because it
even though
is.
they are.
It's
Yeah,
just
though
like
they are. Definitely.
it's just like crazy that I was just like, I was thinking about it too. I was like looking up. I was like, well, let me look at the RPGs. Pokemon. Oh my god, I couldn't even think of that. It was crazy. That was like one of the big ones I couldn't even think of. So for my honorable mentions, I'll be pretty quick about this because I don't want to go into too much detail, but I want to talk about Obsidian's versions of Fallout New Vegas, and also Obsidian came out with Outer Worlds. Both are good games, really enjoyable. For Fallout New Vegas, it's set in that same universe, but I think it does a lot of things that the other Fallout games haven't done, and it does those things pretty well. It's got a good story, actually. It's very interesting with all the choices you can make in New Vegas. And Outer Worlds is also it's a fun game, similar vein, but it felt better than Fallout 4, for example. We talked about East, and then finally, I want to say that like Diablo 2 and Diablo 3, after their expansions, were really fun games
Yeah.
that I got into, and I know you got into Diablo 3.
Yeah.
Sure.
Base Diablo 3 kind of sucked,
Yeah.
but the expansion was really good.
Yeah. And then I also wanted to shout out BioShock, that series. I know you don't necessarily like it as much.
Is that an RPG?
That's an RPG. It's considered an RPG, I think.
Man,
So
that toes the line
it's
for
towing
me.
the
I don't know
line.
about
I
that one.
understand. I understand it is, but it does toe it definitely does, but I just want to say that BioShock is a fun game if that's the kind of it's just like it's that first person shooter type of genre, but at the same time it has those light RPG elements to it. Do I think it's like if you're a hardcore RPG fan you should be playing it? Probably not, but if you like to toe that line in between, that it's probably right down your alley. Excuse me, alley.
Do you even level up in BioShock?
Oh, there are systems in place to level up skills and such, and you do get like abilities.
Yeah.
Yeah, like,
but you don't like gain EXP and like level up.
Not
like,
really.
level 2,
Not
level
to the
3,
same extent that you would
etc.
say in like a more like, I would say like
Yeah.
RPG type of game. But it's like Fallout. It is like Fallout to me. You do level up, I guess, but you upgrade these like skills, and it's a little bit different. It's just a little bit different.
Okay.
What are some other ones that I wanted to quickly highlight before we sort of rounded things out? I like the XCOM series. Again, it sort of toes that line a little bit. There is a level up system, but good turn based strategy. Let's see here. I did say I would talk about Mega Man X Command Mission. That's another. I think that's underrated for me. It's definitely not a top 5, but it was refreshing to find a Mega Man X game that was an RPG that I actually liked.
Zelda is not an RPG. Don't you get me started on this. That game is
Uh-oh.
not a freaking RPG. Not even close.
I yeah, I'm like I don't want
Zelda
to
2, Zelda 2, yes.
Zelda
All the rest,
2.
no.
Zelda 2, sure. All the
Zelda 2,
others,
I will give you, not the rest.
yeah, all the others no. I don't yeah, we're I'm trying to think of any others, I think we talked a bit about the Tale series. That's a great
Yeah, we talked
series.
a bit about Tales. That game is like I wouldn't say it's underrated. It has its following. It's not super popular, but it has its following.
Yeah. Other than that, those are the ones I wanted to talk about before we rounded this up because I do think there are some good ones. Oh,
we have we have we,
that's one
right?
of my not barbaric, but my full auto peeps.
Okay. Yeah,
Hey,
I do not classify Zelda is an action adventure game to me. I don't
yeah,
there is not enough character or like skill progression in Zelda or leveling up or anything for it to be considered an RPG. You get equipment, you get like some upgrades with like the items you pick up, but for me, again, this is obviously opinion because I know some people do classify as an RPG, but for
mm,
me, there is not enough character progression for it to be considered an
sure.
RPG.
I would say just to play devil's advocate, if it's something that's got something close to that system, we'll say it toes the line. But you know, to classify it first and foremost as an RPG, I think would be incorrect. It's got different definitions that come first. It's like BioShock.
Yeah,
It's not an RPG first and foremost. It's got
yeah,
different definitions before it. Um, but it's got some flavor, I guess.
yeah. Again, if I were to classify Zelda, I would say it's an action adventure
Yeah,
game
which
with
I would agree with.
very minor RPG elements. But like, if I had to like, if someone asked me like, tell me what Zelda is as a genre, or like explain Zelda to me, like, and its genre, I would probably not mention anything about it being an RPG because I just don't think it is. But
Yeah,
yeah,
but anyway, okay. Let's round this out. I think we
yeah,
really did
this has been a long one. We
much longer
to
than we
talk about.
thought, but that's okay. I mean,
Yeah,
I think we talked a lot about the various different games that we've been introduced to, but also the genres. Because I don't think there's any like one particular genre that's better. Obviously, we had like the polls and we've talked about it, but there are definitely JRPGs in particular that I've really enjoyed, and there are also some great Western RPGs that it's just like even if you like a certain flavor of game, uh, there are some really good examples in both buckets that you can just like enjoy regardless of your preference is what I would say. But um yeah, so any closing thoughts, Spoon, before I get into the closing of this episode?
um, no, I think we've pretty much covered it. We Yeah, this was a nice long talk. We got some people in chat here, which we appreciate, of course.
Yeah,
So
of
yeah,
course, obviously, whether you're new to the community or not, we really do appreciate it. It's nice, especially when Spoon and I have taken this initiative to do these podcasts. And good segue to end this on is if you enjoyed what we talked about, or if you just perhaps want to hear us or talk, potentially talk about it more. Um, Feel free to follow either of us, both of us, and the Myriathon. So, Spoon, your Twitter is
at SPT
at
Spoon.
SPT Spoon. Easy
Yeah,
enough.
same with Twitch.
Yep, same with Twitch. Forgot about that one.
Yeah,
And mine is for Twitter, it is at Automaton89. And my Twitch is Automaton1989. Um, if you would like to follow Myriathon on Twitter, we'll be posting updates on the Myriathon that's upcoming June 11th through 14th, as well as podcast updates. Those should be every Monday, and they'll start 5 p.m. Pacific time, assuming no issues come up from either of us. I think this week was a special week,
yep.
but
Special case,
special
but
case with
gen-
traveling and such.
yeah.
And
Mondays at 5 p.m.
yeah,
Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern will be
Yes.
the usual start time.
Yes, and we will talk a little bit about the topic through our social media channels and through our discords. If you want to know more about our discords, you can always contact us or through the Myriathon server. We also obviously have this Twitch that we're doing the broadcast on now, which is twitch.tv/the Myriathon. If you're interested, just follow. If you're not, maybe just put us on your schedule for the podcast and just come and hang out.
Smash that follow button.
But you should smash the follow button, absolutely. Um, we also are posting this VOD on YouTube. The YouTube is the Myriathon. There's a space between those, and the best way to do it is when you get to YouTube, search for the Myriathon in your search bar, and we'll come up right away. And if you like what we're talking about, smash that subscribe button.
Smash that subscribe button and
can't
ring that bell.
Ring the alert bell, or don't. Either way, just if you're someone who can't necessarily catch the broadcast but are interested. And finally, the audio will be on SoundCloud. That is my personal SoundCloud at Automaton89 on SoundCloud. And you can, I guess, smash the like button on that, but, do whatever you want.
Smash it. Just smash it.
Okay, Smooth says just smash it. But
always smash it.
Always just smash it. Click as hard as you can. That'll do it for us. Like I said, if you enjoyed our content, please make sure to follow all those channels I just talked about.
Also, I would say feel free to if you have an idea of like a topic maybe you want us to discuss, feel free to add us on social media, in Discord or whatever. We're also at some point we'll start introducing some guests to the show. So
yeah, hopefully soon if we can get the right topics and the right opportunity.
We're kind of filling it out. See what people like, see what's popular. We're probably gonna stick with just us two for maybe a couple more episodes, but then we'll probably start bringing some guests on to help us talk about things.
Yeah. So, like we both have said, we're always open to hear that feedback regarding even just
if you have feedback for anything with the show, please let us know.
Yep.
We want this to be a thing. We want people to like it. We'd like to see some some new faces in the community. We'd like to grow the podcast and grow the channel, for the Myriathon in general, and just get us going. So if you guys like it, please, as we've said, smash the follow button, subscribe button, and the like, and yeah, give us your feedback, any feedback you have, and also just shout us out on social media. Tell your friends, tell your family, anyone who might be interested.
Yep.
Spread the word if you like what you're seeing. Please.
Absolutely. That's 100%.
And believe me, I hate this. I hate this sellout stuff. I completely hate it. But you got to do it.
Yeah. No, this is something that we've taken initiative on, and we're all ears, I think, with everything. So that'll about do it. Thank you for everybody for watching, listening, and the like, and we will see you next week.
Yep. Have a good night, everybody.
Thanks, guys.